There is another aspect here that we need to introduce. We normally call it the photo respiration. So we need to understand this. It is a disadvantage or problem that the plants face. It disturbs the plants because all plants that are undergoing the photorespiration, they are going to end up drying. They will not succeed. They will not grow. You have several seen plants drying all of a sudden. We need to understand that on our previous coverage of the C3 cycle, these plants operate very well whenever the carbon dioxide partial pressure is high. The plants that take up C3 cycle for formation of organic compounds like glucose, they will successfully form the glucose in presence of high carbon dioxide partial pressures. Students produce mistakes here whenever they are talking about gases and they mention carbon dioxide concentration. It is not correct science. We normally measure gases in pressures and then fluids will be measured in concentrations. It should therefore be understood that carbon dioxide partial pressures, oxygen partial pressures is very correct there. Now, whenever carbon dioxide partial pressures are low, these plants are most likely not to thrive. Probably if they are using the C3 cycle alone. And their failure is what we call photorespiration. Several plants are going to dry. That is that some plants don't grow in regions of low partial pressures of carbon dioxide. Science is clear. Assume this is a mountain. Most plants will succeed. You see them succeeding here on the lower altitudes. And you have manifested that a few plants make it here. See that one? If you've been mountain climbers, you will appreciate that most tropical rainforests are on the lowlands. They are dominating on the lower altitudes there, where oxygen partial pressures and carbon dioxide partial pressures are very high. From your chemistry of senior 2, you will appreciate that the rare gases are arranged according to their density. Therefore, carbon dioxide being a dense gas, it will highly dominate here. It cannot afford being at high altitudes. Likewise, the oxygen. The higher you go, the oxygen partial pressures become low. Because it is a lighter gas, but relatively it becomes dense, so it cannot be seen taking to those levels there. Now, carbon dioxide being very high at the low altitudes, the plants will successfully grow here in higher populations. These plants are most likely to be C3 plants. C3 plants are those plants with the C3 cycle or with the Kelvin cycle. Those plants which can make it up there are said to be C4 plants. We shall appreciate what these plants are in our next context. I want you to understand this problem called photorespiration. We are going to expect respiration happening here in plants, but sunlight is involved in this kind of respiration. How does photorespiration occur? Now, this is what photorespiration is. Plant C, three plants we have appreciated one organic compound present rubin, and it has a tendency of binding with the carbon dioxide under influence of an enzyme. We sometimes call it Lubisco. So they call it Lubisco. That is the same as lubipocarboxylase. So don't be confused when you find different work in different textbooks. Lubipocarboxylase. Sometimes you can say the problem Lubisco. Lubipobisphosphate carboxylase. What happens is when carbon dioxide partial pressure is low, but carbon dioxide partial pressure is low, so people will find the hard shifts in binding with the low carbon dioxide partial pressure, and it will alternatively bind with oxygen. I repeat, that when carbon dioxide partial pressure is low, Lubipo will hardly bind with this carbon dioxide given its low partial pressure, and it will become of a relatively higher affinity to oxygen. So it will wish to bind with oxygen much more easily than carbon dioxide under influence of the same enzyme Lubisco. So Lubipo during the low partial pressure of carbon dioxide bind with oxygen, and the reaction is catalyzed by an enzyme Lubisco or lubipocarboxylase. You are aware from your classification of enzymes, enzymes are known to control several reactions. That's one of their properties. So it is true now, it's already true here, because it catalyzes the binding of carbon dioxide. The same thing, it catalyzes the binding of the Lubipo. It is disadvantageous for oxygen to bind with the Lubipo, because once oxygen binds with Lubipo, we're going to fail to have products from Lubipo. So Lubipo is going to be rendered useless once it binds with the oxygen. Lubipo, on binding with oxygen, it decomposes to carbon dioxide plus water. None of these products are important in the plant. Yes, the Lubipo is used up. Lubipo is used up. However, we expect sunlight to be present in high intensities. Those are the main properties. Those are the main factors that affect respiration. Number one, that light intensity should be very high. Number two, low partial pressures of carbon dioxide. Those are the main two factors that affect photorespiration. I want to mention clearly that when Lubipo, a 5-carbonic compound, bind with oxygen under influence of an enzyme I've mentioned clearly, in the presence of high light intensity during the low partial pressures of carbon dioxide, Lubipo decomposes to produce carbon dioxide and then water. These products can simply be lost out of the leaf through the stomata. This can be lost in the form of water vapor during transpiration, and we subsequently lose this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, especially when it's in excess, because we are worried when carbon dioxide reacts with water. You know what happens in the presence of an enzyme, carbonic anhydrase shall produce weak carbonic acid that will even probably lower the pH of the leaf, making it very low, plus hydrogen carbonic ion. Like accumulation of these hydrogen protons are going to drift the pH in the cells of the plant and become low. Yes, the pH should be maintained in neutral at 7.4. So whenever it becomes low, it can become 2 or probably 3. This is the bleaching the cells of the leaf. Plants therefore get rid of the excess carbon dioxide, and then you realize that the normal pH is restored. They will ask you what is meant by the term for respiration. This equation, can you find it all clearly? The process by which Rubic bind with oxygen in the presence of low partial pressures for carbon dioxide and high light intensity, decomposing it to carbon dioxide and water. The smartest student probably is carbon in his 50 plants. Well, this cannot be occur in 50 plants and not anywhere else. Hope that one is very clear. That one is very clear. Though it appears disturbing to some students wondering why now Rubic is binding with oxygen. I mentioned that Rubic should not bind with oxygen, not until the carbon dioxide partial pressure claimed to be low. So the only way it will bind with it, this is when it's very low, and that one is going to decompose the Rubic to carbon dioxide and water. The moment we lose these 5 carbon compounds, it means that this plant is not going to afford forming glucose, because we shall have a cycle cut. You remember? You remember that now Rubic happens to react with carbon dioxide to produce a 6 carbon compound which is very stable, generating piga there, and then you happen to have the carbon generate piga gas. The carbon compounds, exhaust sugar is formed. You see, that exhaust sugar comes in there, and then we probably regenerate the Rubic. Now I want you to imagine if the carbon dioxide is the one the oxygen is accepted instead of carbon dioxide, all this reaction will going to continue to not, and you shall simply produce carbon dioxide plus water as byproducts. These ones will not regenerate to us all in products here. So it means that photorespiration is wasteful. We shall not form the excess sugar at the end. We are not achieving the goal. This plant will dry because of failure to have sufficient glucose molecules. You know, glucose molecules are very important in those plants because it is where they generate their energy. When the plants generate in the leaves, this is the leaf of this tree, and then we happen to analyze where the food goes. That students can appreciate why is glucose important. Whenever we generate glucose here, I want to say it is correct that it will be transported through the phloem. See, this back of the plant is what we call the phloem. That fresh part there, normally they cut it off for medicinal purposes. It is a part where glucose or whatsoever food formed in the leaf here is transported to the roots. Some plants take an advantage of storing a lot of food here in the name of the glucose that is accumulated in the roots there. An example, that glucose, when it's in excess, it binds together with several glucose molecules and they form a polymer. That's what I call starch. This one is stored down there when it's in excess. But primarily, glucose is respired in presence of oxygen. and then we produce carbon dioxide plus water and energy. So some reaction. So we happen to have energy. This energy here is required for these roots to subsequent the transport water and mineral salts. So mineral salts are actively pumped from the soil particles here. So mineral salts find their way in the plant here. And now we have, whenever the salts are accumulated here in the roots, they automatically create a very high salt potential. See here? Potential, it becomes very high. When salt potential becomes very high, there is a tendency of water passively moving by osmotic flow. See that one? So osmotic influx of water happening following in the region of high salt potential. You see, water has a tendency to move into the regions where it is not, where it is not. Water moves from regions of its high concentration and it finds its way to regions where water molecules are very few. Now, given a lot of salts here, as they were actively pumped, whenever I say active pumping, I mean energy was involved in, and then they pumped them to these roots. Once in the roots, we shall have these water molecules transported now in the reverse direction through the xylem, and they go to the leaves. You know why you want water in the leaves? You remember during the light study when we said sunlight strikes them in the process of photolysis to produce hydrogen ions plus hydroxyl ions. So we need water in the light stage to produce for us hydrogen ions, which are carried off by NADP. We need these hydrogen ions in the Calvin cycle to reduce the phosphoglyceric acid to phosphoglyceraldehyde. Now, that's why we need water. Now, the plant that has no glucose, because it was going through the photorespiration, this plant is going to fail to have sufficient glucose molecules in the roots. It will not only fail to have the excess phosphoric, but it will also fail to have glucose molecules required to produce the energy which is used to actively pump the sodium ion here. So it means the sodium ions will not be, the roots will not be high of required salt potential, of required high salt potential for osmotic influx of water. So eventually, you're not going to have water in the leaves. Now, the absence of water in the leaves, you know how the leaves will behave without water. They will plasmolize. And when they plasmolize, they become flabby. When they flabby, they even reduce their exposure of chlorophyll to sunlight. By some of them coiling, the plant will lower its productivity, and eventually, this plant will dry. That one is very clear. That one is very clear. So I think that one correctly explained to you, the students, the aspect called photorespiration in the C3 plants. It is a disadvantageous form of biochemical reaction that fails the plant completely, especially those plants that we wish to grow in regions where carbon dioxide partial pressures are very low, like at high altitudes. On my continuation here, I want to make you appreciate that C3 plants realize that they don't deserve death. So they chose to come up with a new mechanism on how to resist photorespiration, even when they are trying to grow in regions of low carbon dioxide partial pressure. Some plants developed another cycle to resist photorespiration taking place in them. Here, I will introduce the Hertzsprung pathway. So the Hertzsprung pathway, we happen to will happen to be the cycle that was introduced in the C3 plants. I want you to get me clear here. High-Slacker pathway was introduced in C3 plants. We introduced High-Slacker pathway. We introduced it in C3 plants. And those C3 plants which evolved and they acquired the High-Slacker pathway successfully, they ceased being the C3 plants. Those plants became C4 plants. I don't know if you're getting me clear. This is supposed to mean that all plants, they have a C3 cycle. But not all plants that have a C3 cycle are C3 plants. I said that C3 plants which were growing on low partial pressures of carbon dioxide, they realized that they need to develop a new cycle in them. That cycle is called the High-Slacker pathway. Once they developed it, they stopped being recognized as C3 plants. Those plants became C4 plants because they adopted a C4 cycle. High-Slacker pathway, it is sometimes called C4 cycle. So you find some books mentioning C4 cycle, they want to mean the High-Slacker pathway. So I want to clearly say that students should also understand how this C4 cycle or how this High-Slacker pathway solves the problem of photorespiration in those C3 plants. And I want to make it clear here. C4 cycle, we introduced new organic compound in our cythroma where the rubid existed, where the piga existed, where the pigaro existed, like we said in the C3 cycle. In the same cythroma, we introduced new compounds, and this is oxaloacetic acid. That one. Oxaloacetic acid in C4 plants acted as a carbon dioxide acceptor, just like rubid does. Oxaloacetic acid accepts carbon dioxide. I want to be clear here. I want to be more clear here. The C4 cycle, the carbon dioxide acceptor of C4 cycle, students should not confuse it to call it oxaloacetic acid. Carbon dioxide acceptor in C4 cycle is called PEP. That one is correct. It is a 3-carbon compound. This one is a 3-carbon compound. PEP. It's called phenol, like benzene, phosphenol, pyruvic acid. That one is correct. Not oxaloacetic acid. This one is correct. Carbon dioxide is accepted by PEP under influence of an enzyme PEP carboxylase. PEP carboxylase. Phosphenolpyruvic acid carboxylase. You can choose to write it in full. When PEP, a C3 carbonic compound, it accepts carbon dioxide, it will generate a new carbonic compound called oxaloacetic acid, a C4 molecule. I think this one is producing more sense. We have 3 carbonic compounds accepting another carbon from carbon dioxide. We produce oxaloacetic acid. You students, I want you to understand that PEP carboxylase is this is PEP, a carbon dioxide acceptor. It abnormally has a high affinity for carbon dioxide than the liquid. Want to repeat that? That is, PEP has a high affinity. Affinity, I want to mean love. Has a high affinity for carbon dioxide than UBP. So it means that for it, even if you provide a bucket of gases, you put there plenty of oxygen, 21%, provide nitrogen up to 78%, and you provide the other gases like hydrogen and so on in higher percentages. But carbon dioxide, you put there 0.00001%. PEP will pick the carbon dioxide. This emphasizes that for it can even accept the carbon dioxide when the partial pressures of carbon dioxide are very low, thereby solving the problem we mentioned. Now what happens here? Acetic acid will form malic acid, a 4-carbonic compound like that, and then we happen to have malic acid generating pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is a 3-carbonic compound. Watch that. Watch this one here. Malic acid is a 4-carbonic compound generates pyruvic acid, a 3-carbonic compound. Where does the carbon go? Where does it go? A carbon will be discharged outside as carbon dioxide. So we need carbon dioxide here, and this carbon dioxide it joins the C3 cycle to abnormally bypass the photorespiration like that. And what is going to happen here is the pyruvic acid will regenerate the PEP and the cycle will continue. This is a Hertzsprung pathway. An ATP molecule is used here. ATP molecule is used broken down to ADP and inorganic phosphate to regenerate the PEP. And this Hertzsprung pathway will continue. Helping the C3 cycle receive carbon dioxide so easily. It will help the C3 cycle to receive carbon dioxide now. Here, Ruby can receive it. Ruby can receive it, and these procedures will continue, like we said in the first place, to produce exhaust sugar. Like that. So, I want to say that Hertzsprung pathway is a mini cycle that allows the C3 plants or allow the C3 plants that were growing in regions of low carbon dioxide partial pressures accept that carbon dioxide and eventually be fixed in UBP to bypass the photorespiration and thereby solving that problem. Those plants are known as C4 plants that acquire this mini cycle. I will address more about that. And we shall have to emphasize how this C4 cycle continue to have better advantages